Hello to everyone. Welcome to the last insight, meditative, spiritual, consciousness, and so much more study of putting on the mind of Christ. This is our last study where I will close up. This is not the end of my broadcast. Remember that you are so loved with an everlasting love. This is your Pastor Yeti. And today, I will talk about where do we go from here and where do we go as church. For those who are coming new, I encourage you to start from the beginning. Those who are trying to get hold of all what they heard, please go back. This education, the spiritual insight, is given to you for the rest of your life. What might be the future of Christianity in the 21st century? This is a huge topic and one I scarcely feel competent to address adequately, given that the church worldwide has about 2 billion adherents, hundreds of denominations and rites, and thousands of institutions. But I will offer a few thoughts. In all of this, it's the work of God. We went through the life of Christ. We went to the different levels of consciousness. And we need to be guided by the Holy Spirit who is in you. That the church, as a community of those who are trying to follow Jesus in the kingdom of heaven, will survive is certain. Jesus promised that it would, and that the very gates of hell would not prevail against it. Matthew 16:18. He promised that his own words similarly would be remembered for all of human history. Matthew 24:35. So, I am not worried about the church staying power. What form or forms the church will take is another question altogether. Even Jesus predicted that someday people will worship God in spirit and in truth. John 4:23. Rather than in temples. In the late 1960s, the English-American non-dual mystic Alan Watts, and I think most of all of you know this man, who for a while was an Episcopal priest, wrote an essay entitled, "What Shall We Do with the Church?" In his usual brilliant but compassionately humorous way, Watts suggested that the future of the church lay in getting away from moralizing, proselytizing, mythology, fundraising, and endless rational level scattering. And getting back to offer the one service it should have been offering, but usually was not. Genuine spiritual and mystical experience. He also suggested that the church had much to learn from other religions such as Buddhism. Watts was ahead of his time. His words were little heeded, accepted by a large number of spiritually starved young people who took his lead in exploring the mystical riches of the East. Though Watts was one of the greatest mystics the English-American church has produced. He was seen as a gadfly, a man who hung out with beatniks and hippies in crazy California. His works treated as marginal. The times are now catching up with Watts. What he called for may soon be what millions of churchgoers will be demanding, that the church offer them something real, real spiritual healing, real spiritual power, real mystical experience, real contact with the communion of saints, and real practical and knowledgeable assistance in getting to inner God realization. Those churches that respond will survive. The church as an institution is the servant of the servants of God, and Americans know that. In a service economy with empowered consumers, a service organization must provide what its customers want and need, or the customers will go elsewhere. Nor can an organization supply a service, in this case, spiritual and mystical expertise. If it lacks the ability to perform that service, if it lacks spiritual realization itself. Watts ends his essay by saying, of course, there is a good argument for just letting obsolete institutions fall apart, since no man putteth new wine into old wineskins. Matthew 9:17. That too may happen, and in today's accelerating global change, it could happen faster than people think. In the next few years, the Roman Catholic Church in America, I don't even speak global wide, will be devastated by the rapid dying off or retirement of what few, mostly elderly clergy remain. Mainstream American Protestant churches have been losing membership for years. Church attendances in many Christian nations, such as England, Sweden, and France, is already extremely low. Throughout Latin America, millions of people whose spiritual nourishment has been neglected for decades are converting to more experiential forms of Christianity at a dizzying rate. The church in Russia and Eastern Europe, now without an authentic state to fight and now open to the influence of the West, will change profoundly in the 21st century. The so-called New Age movement is burgeoning all over the world, particularly among Christians. Even the fundamentalist parts of the church are undergoing ever accelerating change. Many of its American members, ironically, are learning how to think and operate at a rational level by learning to practice politics in a pluralistic society. So, what the 21st century holds for the church as an institution is anybody's guess. But one thing seems sure: the form of the Christian church, despite attempts to hold on to the past, may well be almost unrecognizable 100 years hence. Where do we go as individuals? First, before we go anywhere, we should first assess where we are. In the spiritual path, we cannot jump steps. We must start exactly where we are now. Where we are now is perfect. It is perfect for the lessons the Holy Spirit wants us to learn. It is perfect in providing us with mirrors, that is, other people who reflect back to us our level of consciousness, our fears, and our strengths, perfect for our own future unfolding. Second, we must listen to the small, still voice of the Spirit within. Psalm 46, verse 10. Most of us are very good at talking, even at talking to God in prayer and asking God questions. But most of us are not good at listening, at quietening the mind through meditation, so the Holy Spirit can direct us and answer our questions. Failure to listen to the Holy Spirit is the only mistake that, as Jesus said, cannot be given. Luke 12, verse 10. If we pass up on or fail to listen to a grace or inspiration from the Holy Spirit, it passes us by. It's gone. It can't be undone, forgiven. Third, we must work hard on ourselves. Gokiam Trungpa has called the spiritual path manual labor. Jesus likened it to putting the shoulder to a plow. Luke 9:62. In some ways, the path can be brutal. Jesus said that if our eye is holding us back from heaven, plug it out. Matthew 18, verse 9. Here is a very deep spiritual given. These are not taken as literal, but this is the eye-opener for your spiritual walk. If our hands is holding us back, cut it off. Matthew 5:30. If our family or other relationships are in the way, leave them. Luke 9:61. Only those of us who place God first with all our hearts and souls and minds, Matthew 22:37, and who are willing to sacrifice anything or any relationship that gets in the way, are likely to realize the kingdom. People routinely make such sacrifices to win a gold medal at the Olympics or to try to win the presidency. We must at least be as dedicated. 2 Timothy 4:7, 1 Corinthians 9:24. We have to be willing to go all out, day after day, for a lifetime. Fourth, we must be patient. The spiritual path takes years. Heaven can't be stormed overnight, nor can we completely change ourselves overnight. Only the ego works violently, always wanting to push and shove, to hurry. The force. War is ego at its extreme. The effort to violently force things to go our way, and many of us are in a perpetual state of war within ourselves. The Spirit works very gently, never by force. Its movement within us is subtle and delicate. As Bernadette Roberts says, Spirit grows us from within, naturally and gradually. The best spiritual practice is to do a little each day. Pray, meditate, go to church, receive Holy Communion each day. Keep a daily journal, keep track of dreaming, go for a quiet walk. Fifth, we should find a community of people who think as we do, who are as serious about the spiritual path as we are, and we can pray with us and support us. As Jesus said, 2 or 3 gathered in His name are far more effective than going it alone. Matthew 18:20. The best practice is probably what Wilbur calls an integral practice. In integral spiritual practice, we exercise on a daily basis all the parts of ourselves with an eye to the spiritual growth. We do something for the body, yoga, running, weightlifting, something for the emotions, psychotherapy, dream work, emotional release, something for the mind, spiritual reading, and something for the soul, meditation. This keeps the whole of ourselves attuned every day to inner growth and keep the various parts of ourselves in balance. Finally, we should remind ourselves daily who we are. We are already perfect in God's eyes. We are already God's beloved sons and daughters. Romans 8:16. We are already sinless. 1 John 3:9. We are already heirs with Jesus of the kingdom. Romans 8:17. Our essence is love. 1 John 4:7-8. We are already saved. 1 John 2:2. We are already immortal. 1 Corinthians 15:54. The spiritual path is not designed to get any of these things for us. In truth, we do not now lack any of them. It is merely to help us gradually become conscious of who we already are, and to make ourselves more perfect vehicles for the manifestations of the love of God on earth. I urge you to write things down for yourself in a journal so that you can daily read what you already are. I know that a lot of Christians doubting where they are, what they already have, and are they really worthy? There is such a low esteem amongst Christian people. Please, if the Holy Spirit dwells in you, we can ask Him that He gives us insight and knowledge and guidance, eye openers. He dwells in you. We don't have to raise up our hands and say, "Come, come." He is already there. Our well can be dry inside of us. We can ask Jesus, because He is the living water. That's why I start from now my broadcast. That remember that you are loved with an everlasting love. Let us end in prayer. I pray we all become perfect vehicles for expressing God's love, so that through us the kingdom of heaven will come on earth just as it already is in heaven. I pray for all of you that these words will come alive in your life daily. Use some activities that I just mentioned. But most of all, we need to learn to listen. We all are too busy, and we all want to give our own answers instead of answers of the Holy Spirit. If you run, don't overrun yourself. Stay behind and run. But you stay on the path. When you meditate, do it in a protective way. As you heard through my lessons, that there is a danger in opening yourself So, I end this now. And my heart is praying that you out there will take it very serious. When Jesus called His disciples, it was not just to give Him the company. There was a message to give, which He did. And it went through difficult stages, where some of the disciples would just run and said, "This kind of teaching is too hard for me," and they run away. Some questioned Jesus, like a Peter, he had to go through some teaching, where he saw the Master saying to him, "Put out your nets again," where he was saying, "Come on, who knows it better?" Things like that. So here you see our humanity. brothers and sisters, global wide, take these lessons for life and let the Holy Spirit guide you, inspire you, and let you grow. May the God of Israel protect you, and may His light shine upon you. God bless. This is your Pastor Yeti. Bye-bye.